All right, welcome back. Thank you all for joining. I guess we can call it the card table, like our like our clubhouse rooms as well. So yeah, so today is the Queen of Hearts week. We spoke about it in clubhouse a little bit, and me, Gina, and Growesha guided by the cards, growing with the seasons. And my name is Rashad in the cards. I forgot to throw that in there, right? But
It's
yeah,
early.
it's a Queen of Hearts week. So we talked about the Queen of Hearts on Clubhouse, and we'll talk about that a little bit today. And before we came on, we were talking about the nine of diamonds, eight of diamonds, and just also just the perspectives I seen. I put on Instagram that I asked AI about the cards. You know, have you done that yet?
No, I haven't. I haven't even ventured in the AI
It's
stuff.
it's very interesting, and it comes back semi accurate, pretty accurate. And it's very surprising. I don't know what else it can do. Imagine AI giving readings, right?
So
Wow.
intuitive. But the AI is so intuitive, right? Because like I think about something and I talk to Miles and then it's on my phone.
Because it heard you.
Like it heard me. So that's its intuitiveness. It's like, we're listening. We're
Mhm.
listening. Like, I know. Like,
It shows up. You're like, yo.
out of my closet, man. Like, what the fuck? Why are you listening? Excuse me. What? Like, why are you listening to me? Like, you don't got anything to do. You don't have a relationship to make better. You don't have a heart to open. Like, hello?
It's a program.
That's funny, and it's a King of Clubs day, right? Think about.
Yeah.
Oh,
I kind of see like intelligence AI is like the King of Clubs a little bit as well. So
Mhm.
that's, and like you're saying, if you don't have any emotions, you got to open up. You know, it's like the Queen of Hearts. You know.
And the Queen of Hearts is the Pluto card to the King of Clubs. So there is that challenge with, that intuitiveness at times, and more so feeling rather than the, knowing or seeing or, speaking it. It's more about what you feel.
oh my God. Last night, I had a conversation at the farm with the King of Clubs. And it was so much the Queen of Hearts and the King of Clubs having a conversation because I asked him a question and he gave me very like literal answers and was very awkward. You know, he's so smart and cool, but he's so goofy in his own way too. And so he's like, and then he asked me a question and I started to answer. And I swear, like, you know how I answer. I'm just like, well, it's kind of like I give it right. And he's just like, his face. And I started to laugh at him. I was like, what's the matter? And he's like, well, I mean, but, well, is it like this? Like he just went right to the head, and just went right to like, well, one time it's like this. And I said, well, yeah, of course, that's probably true. But I'm just telling you what my winter's been like. We haven't seen each other for the winter. I was giving you a little blurb on my winter, but he couldn't really process the emotional energy that I was putting into it. And I was in a pretty calm mood. At the end of the day, I was in the sunset. But I was like, wow, you really keep it in the head.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's really living there. It's alive there. It's like, you know what I mean? Like, and it's alive there too. And when I bring it to people and they say they get a little aggravated, like, what's the difference between the head and the heart? And I said, that's a good place to start right there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like,
Yeah.
because there is a difference. There is
Yeah.
a way that you perceive things in your mind that's different than the way you perceive it from your heart or your intuition or your
Mm-hmm.
emotions. There just really is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
For sure. Sorry, I didn't mean to get my serious voice. It's probably because I just, was blow my nose and stuff. So I was like, but yeah, that's an interesting thing because that's to me that's the bridge between your heart and your mind. Yeah, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
When those two things work together, and the base has got some grace, you could grow something that you like, or you at least it's your purpose or something. But if
Mm-hmm.
you're just like repeating information and saying the names that you know and being as smart as you can be, and you're like, but meanwhile he's a visionary. Like I've seen him know in like not knowing it that it's intuitive, do things, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so on point.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an interesting guidance system the King of Clubs must have, not one that I really recognize. Though I'll finish on this. My combination card, I believe, with Miles is a King of Clubs.
Hmm.
So we must be more heady than I think.
Yeah. Interesting.
Right? It's
Interesting.
not the two kings would be the King of Clubs? I think so. I added up the
What's
number.
his card? He's a, what's
King
he?
of diamonds. He's a king of diamonds. So
Oh, wow, that's right.
39 and 39 would be 78, right? Minus 52 would be 26, and that's the king of clubs.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I can't
A lot of king. When you think about it, that's a lot of king energy. Jesus Lord. But I think it's a really good, like, being able, because, and since you are two kings, it kind of makes sense to me that you would have this composite as a king, because what other energy could you deal with?
Yeah. I mean, the only one we don't have is the king of spades, you know, because we have, I'm the king of hearts, king of diamonds, and we have the king of clubs, and like the twins are two queens. So I mean, and my parents were two jacks, so I'm definitely in the land of them.
But the king of clubs has the king of spades, you know, the queen of hearts has the king of spades in their spread, so it's there.
So teach me how to use my king, friends. Yeah. That's what I'm here for. Like, teach me how to use where I'm sitting the best I can.
Yeah. And I think for, you know, women who, you know, come in under that king energy, it is, you know, the balance of the soft and the masculine, the feminine, the masculine, to be able to really have them work together, not being an over tipping of one so much that the other one is obsolete. You know, I think that's key. And the king of clubs does have that queen of hearts in Pluto. So there is this, you know, battle probably between that head and heart, you know, how to tap in, because the queen of heart, you know, the queens at their highest are to serve, to nurture, but they're powerful too, because they know how to use those emotions, and the king of clubs is logic. So it is trying to find the balance, you know, that works without it being, like I said, an over. Now queen of hearts and Pluto could be over, you know, they could be oversensitive too, you know, and internalize a lot of those things, because it's Pluto. Pluto is a Pluto is something. I've been doing a lot of dive into Pluto. Yeah.
Deep diving for thriving, for sure.
Yeah, because Pluto's intense. Pluto, you do the Pluto work. I really feel like that is where you do the most. I mean, it's where you do the most transformation. You know, because it's kind of like where you die and be reborn. You know,
really let yourself change. You know, I think the hardest part of life is to get out of where you were, is to let yourself change fully, like to really be like, oh, I don't do that anymore. It's like, oh, but I always did that. It's like, but you don't do it anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think a big part of it too with Pluto is, because it really can represent a lot of healing, you have to embrace a lot of forgiveness without ever even getting any, receiving the apology from the hurt, the pain, or wherever it came from. You have to forgive yourself. You have to forgive your lineage, your parents, their parent. I mean, it requires so much, to me, forgiveness. And I think that's where the healing can really take place, and having a lot of grace with yourself and loving your, I think, speaking of the Queen of Hearts, right? Mothering yourself, nurturing yourself. How can you nurture and love others if you don't give that to yourself, first and foremost, right? And you can deplete yourself. And I've always said, even for the queen energy and even the king energy, never dethrone yourself. You have a lot of that that mastery, because that's what that is to me. Is the queens and the kings represent the mastery level, right? Of really understanding self, understanding who you are. But that comes, it's all like, that's why the Queen of Spades is so powerful to me, because it really does represent like stepping back into the power that you never really lost. You just kind of maybe, stuffed it down there for a little bit. But it requires a really deep self-examination of everything, how you think, how you talk to, just the mindset, the love, everything. So there's a lot. Pluto's a lot, but it can really be profound in understanding, where you do the most transformation.
Yeah. And I have to think about my Pluto card. And I was
Mm-hmm.
making sure I was looking at the numbers, making sure that was the. And you said both y'all are the combination is a king of clubs. I had to recheck. Um,
For her and her husband, yeah. Oh, well, that's what she. Yeah, they're two both king of diamonds.
I thought because at first I thought the composite with yourself was a king of spades usually, but it is a king of clubs. But that's what I was looking at earlier. But the two of hearts for me, I had to really look at the two of hearts. I did make a post about it on Instagram,
I saw that.
and I had to look at like just what I want out of a relationship. So when I look at the Queen of Clubs, I think about Nick. Always talks about like the Jack of Diamonds wanting to have their mother in a relationship, or having these very very high standards of relationships. And I mean, I can see that's kind of like expected as well. As like, how can you be pleased if you're not knowing what you want out of a relationship, or if you always holding someone to these standards that they probably can't even hold, and it's not really realistic. so it's like so it's like with my two hearts and Pluto, it's like, do I have unrealistic expectations out of other people that I'm in a relationship with, or is there a deep desire that I have, or a possible fear. So
Yep.
whenever I look at the King of Club, it's like they're very marriageable people. I think you can find them in relationships. I
Mhm.
think they do take relationships and community very serious because they have a major part of them is the Eight of Aquarius just posted, I think today, something about the Eight of Spades.
Mhm.
But the Two of Spades, yeah, they have the Two of Spades that's challenging them, so they sit in the Two of Spades space. So relationships and having that connection is like very important,
It's their Jupiter card too, right? Isn't the two of spades their Jupiter card? The king of clubs Jupiter card.
Yeah, it is. It
So
is.
you see that,
Um,
like how that,
Mhm.
like you see the benefit, like that, how cooperating. They actually could probably do more. I feel like sometimes the king of clubs is like, I got this. You know what I mean? Like, I can do this. I don't need you, right? But
mm,
their
It's a
blessings come when they can cooperate, when
yeah.
they can, come together with others and have those, the because sometimes they can be like, you don't know shit. I know everything. Um,
Mhm.
I'm not knocking that they don't probably know everything because they probably do, but it's also
Yeah.
allowing others to input and
Mhm.
having that back and forth banter.
Mhm.
So
Mhm. Yeah, very
not being
interesting.
too controlling. Go ahead.
yeah. Rashad, do you have Pluto? May I ask you where Pluto is in your chart? Is it in the seventh house?
No, thank God.
Oh, don't say that.
I'm sorry. But
Oh, that's where yours is? That's where yours is, Tina? That's so funny. I gotta look and see.
I'm gonna sign off now. Bye.
no, I have it worse as
I
it is.
hate that people say that.
I have this imbalance. People probably said it. People say that all the
All the
time.
freaking time.
Mine's in
That's
the
funny.
9th or 10th house.
It's seventh and eighth for me when you look at the two different systems. So yeah.
It's in my
Sometimes.
Virgo and my 9 or 10. Yeah.
So what two different you talking about? If you look at the
Whole sign or
whole
Placidus.
sign or the
Mhm.
yeah, let me see. And you said yours is in which house, Madeline?
Seventh and eighth, if you're looking at,
And
depending on what
what's
system you
Gina's
look at.
7 and 8? Gina's 7 and 8, and I am not. I'm actually like right on the line between the 9 and the 10. Virgo.
Yeah, mine's is 10. And I believe it's like 9 in the that's the whole sign, and then just Placidus um is in the ninth house. Heavy in the ninth too, just because where it starts at, because it starts in Libra, the ninth house, but it's more
That's where it
ninth house.
is. Okay, so it's Libra. I knew there had to be a two, like, and I knew I knew it
Well,
had to
no,
do,
it's in Scorpio. It's in Scorpio. My Pluto's in Scorpio, but
but
the
your
ninth house
house,
starts in the
right?
house. Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Yeah, it
Libra.
starts in the Libra. And then if I do, what is that? Equal houses.
Yeah.
Let me see the equal. It's in the 10th. So, it just depends on how you look at it. I would say I feel like it's in the 10th just because some things I'm more pushed to do as far as like psychology and maybe and like
Working with
the study of
masculine
metaphysics. You said what?
and working with the masculine, because it says here in the 10th house, reputation, public image, masculinity, men's, fathers, experts, and fame. That's what it says in
Yeah.
my little thing about the 10th house.
Yeah. So, but my relationship sometimes isn't the best with men as well. And I think that could be in my Mars with the 7 of Diamonds as well. I had to look at that during this week, past week. I was like, what is it about having to make? And it's not that it doesn't work well. I have to know my self worth because it's not that sometimes I feel like I'm a threat, but I may not give credit where people feel like credit is due. I think and it's not to undermine anything, or it can work in the opposition. Where they feel like they need some type of validation, and there's like this battle of self worth, basically.
Interesting how
Um,
when we have a low sense of ourself, a lot of times people kind of puff themselves up from that
mhm.
lower place, so that they become more like an edge for somebody, because a lot of times I think most people have some sense of like, is mine okay? But instead of saying like, hey, how you doing? Let's figure out what we can do. It's kind of like, was mine better than theirs? Is this okay? Like, we use comparison a lot, and it makes it so the relationship is a little bit awkward because people still getting comfortable being themselves in the relationship.
Yeah, no, yeah, it's definitely, I think, within like that 10th house and men, and like how the status is all about like status, right?
Mhm.
And it's funny, like I look at my younger me, and there was definitely times where I definitely kind of like puff myself up. So it is a mirror sometimes. It can definitely
It
be
is
a
one of
mirror
the ways we
sometimes.
do it. Yeah, we do.
Because I do have to battle with my self worth as well because of that 7 of Diamonds also. But yeah, just overall in relationships. So back to the 7th house and Pluto 2 of Hearts. So I think even like with it also says with my Scorpio about witchy women is like I can run from like really witchy women. But I don't know. I think the 2 of Hearts, Ace of Clubs is a witch too. I don't know that energy is like very, it's like Venus Neptune, so it is kind of like very mystical and like very intuitive. So you have like these intuitive connections,
I think it
so
could be
you join.
obsessive too, right? When you say you have some obsession and possessive type energy, I'm just speaking. Yeah, I know, right?
It's like she revealing. Yeah, it is.
I have a 2 in Pluto too, so just talking to myself.
And it can deal with secrets too, right? And it's the
Mhm.
2 of Hearts, Ace of Clubs, so it can deal with like the secret section as well.
Mhm.
Did I put that on Instagram? I think I may have posted something. I posted something about 2 of Hearts. I don't know if I said that. But yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, it can be possessive. It's power. I was talking about it last night in a room about my relationships have like I do feel like I die, but then I'm reborn. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
There's a part of me that gets very transformed in relationships, almost like getting back my power. But it's really like I said, that too in Pluto, it's very mirroring, right? Very, very mirroring. And it really makes you, for me, I've had to look a lot at myself and like my role and my all of it, and where does it stem from? Because when you unpack a lot of it, like you're saying, it's fear. It all stems from some kind of fear, right? And I think that's one of the biggest things when looking at that too. And Pluto, whatever suit it is, there is essentially there's maybe even abandonment and loss, and there's lots of really, but it makes you look right back at yourself. you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Choose
Yeah,
your life.
especially say
What
you
about
like a
you?
what?
I said they're mirrors. They're mirrors.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, go ahead, Rochelle.
Yeah, that's what I said. It's a mirror. No, that's what I was saying. It is a mirror sometimes. So
Mm-hmm.
I do have to look at myself how I was, and I
Mm-hmm.
have to, sometimes you have to check yourself. Like you said, are you obsessed? Or
Mm-hmm.
is there like and Lindsay Watkins said, and I feel that way as well. Rashad. I have a two of hearts in Venus and two of diamonds in Neptune,
The
but that
9 of
totally
clubs.
resonates with me too.
Mm-hmm.
The nine of clubs is a heavy energy as well, and they challenges the Queen of Hearts, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I
their
just
challenge is the Queen of Hearts. Yeah.
and I was just on Instagram, and not to throw people business out. Nine of Clubs was asking about relationships and why is it whenever they're looking at relationships, it's not that they can't find love or be in love, but it's like I'm supposed to be sending this most heartfelt place. Where's my relationship? Like
Mm-hmm.
so I think the Nine of Clubs is like does want to feel the love, and it's like this exuberance of love, and like Venus is exalted in like Neptune, right? So it's kind of like points of exaltation almost, right? To have a two of hearts in Venus and two diamonds in Neptune. What?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Mm-hmm. And you think about it too, they transform into the 10 of hearts. So there is this like, yeah, that's their transformation card, the 10 of hearts. So you think about how, it's interesting. I think what really helped me with those nines, and I talk about the nines a lot because they're just, you have to make them make sense. Three of them and their life paths transform into 10. So those nines really are like that. It's a win. It really is a win. It's a wish fulfilled because there's an increase that happens, but you have to be able to let go. You have to be able to release. You have to be able to be free. It's a universal energy. And so when it comes to relating, I think boundaries is a big thing with that energy and having them, or not. Sometimes they don't. They go overboard. I feel like having that Queen of Hearts is a challenging karma card. There is like this sense of needing to mother, needing to nurture, but I think there's a struggle with that, because once again, having those twos, it's like you're looking to another possibly to nurture, to love, when once again, it starts with yourself. Right. So it's a fascinating energy. The Nine of Clubs. I've learned a lot. It's my Mercury card, so having an understanding of that energy is really pivotal.
Especially having
Mhm.
expectations, high expectations.
Right. Very. Yes.
Yeah, totally.
Those are like the things you have to let go, like your personal beliefs that you
Mm-hmm.
created, because it's a club, so you
Mm-hmm.
built up this belief around relationships and love, and that support. So that would be supportive to the Queen of Hearts, right? That would be their supportive karma. Is it on the clubs? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Yeah, so
that makes
so
sense.
so it comes with ideals,
Mm-hmm.
but and it's not to say that and it's one of those things where you say like someone has two expectations or too high of a standards, but do they really?
Yeah.
Because I desire this, like because it
Mm-hmm.
makes sense to me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's
Mm-hmm.
where the shared expectations come in. Like you brought it up before about that kind of stuff. We have those couples fishbowl. We had two of them this week, and that's what we're working on is like shared expectations, because it's where a lot of the fires start, is when the expectations don't get met and people don't know what the other one's really looking for. So we started with these foundation questions of what you have already and what you like about it, and then the shared vision is like, how do we share expectations in a way that we don't like collapse on a regular basis over you didn't do this or you didn't do that? Like, how do we actually have that communication? Because a lot of assumption goes into those things, because we're in the romantic illusion. We're just like, oh, we'll see what happens. And all of a sudden you're like, you did what? How come you didn't this? And then a lot of like undertone, like Plutonian, like, hey, what, they better not hurt you, you better get them.
Sabotage.
They're out for your soul. They can take you. It's like, no, they can't. Yes, they can. Trust me. It's like, okay.
Oh God. Yeah, and like Lindsay, like she's saying, there's a high expectation, but it comes a lot of disappointments. It's true, and being able to letting really seeing that a lot of times too. I've learned those nines, it's perceived as a disappointment. A lot of times if something is ending or completing, it is probably something that you really wanted or desired, but or was better for you, but when you had that expectation of it being this way and it doesn't come to that way, now you view it as a disappointment when really it probably was a protection. It probably was a blessing, but until you were able to let go of what you had thought it to be, right? You get stuck. What I call it for the nines is like getting stuck in that tunnel and not seeing the light, not seeing the wish fulfilled, not seeing the win. And because you can get stuck in that, the tunnel is what I call it. It's like that that's where you hold on to the loss. You hold on to what's trying to go, right? Because like I said, it transforms into a 10. So the win is here, the blessing is here, but you over here like, no, right? When you don't see this is like, oh, wait a minute. That's actually better for me. And you're like, dang, I spent a lot of time being stuck in that damn tunnel. So.
Yeah, there's definitely something about the way you can hold on to what you think it should be or could have been and stuff that can really interrupt the next gift.
You're right. Yeah.
I agree. Completely.
Or seemingly logical, maybe you need a little bit more faith as well.
Right. Faith in that what is, that there's something better coming. Right. Mm-hmm. And I think that's just so right, because what always travels together, the sevens and the nines. Right. So it's, and I remember Nick said something in a room. It's like having faith that something even better is coming before you even know what it is, before it even shows up, before it even reveals itself. Because that is kind of the light, right? Or you stay in that dark tunnel. That's fear. That's the loss. That's the disappointment. That's not the faith. That's not the light. That's not the win, the blessing. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Yeah. So I imagine a lot of what we do to block love or to not change has something to do with the uncertainty that's going on overall, right? Because we're all kind of waking up to how much we might have been programmed to actually fight with each other and to see things differently, just to kind of stay in attention where we'd be distracted with these arguments that we'd have over things, right? So as you start to trust, love, surrender to the flow of faith, let go, you also have to be able to make peace with, you got to let that go too, because that's where we got to forgive ourselves. Because I think the ego part of us is offended by how dumb we could be. You know what I mean? It's like, I can't believe I did that. Like, are you serious? Like, and then you got to still be that person after you were so ridiculous. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a big part of relationship strength too, is like, can you come out of those spaces where you were vulnerable and awkward and ridiculous? Like, because that's where the other side is, that's where the acceptance is and the laughter is, and being like, oh my gosh, we do so many weird things in one life. I don't want to keep thinking about that anymore. But it's hard sometimes to let it go because it perseverates, like we had a role play in our group the other day because there was this one guy saying that his girlfriend just won't stop talking about this certain issue over and over. And he's just like so sick of it and wants to make a boundary, but like cares about her and loves her, but like she won't stop talking about certain things. Do you know what I mean? And so he's a 7 of hearts. And so he was trying so hard to be compassionate, but he was so done with it. But he definitely didn't say anything. So we did a role play of what he could have said, like how he could have changed the subject or brought it somewhere else, because he was just letting it come at him in a way that he felt overtaken. And she maybe didn't even realize that she was just like, like she was just in it, you know what I mean? And for like a week, you know, so it became such an interesting thing. And we let the two men act it out. And it was rather hilarious because they were imitating what the women sounds like when we do it. And it was very, very funny. But like, and when
imagine.
it was so funny. And they were like, no, you don't understand. Like they were just like right back, like no matter what he said, it's like, rah, 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 you know, like that kind of shit. And we were just cracking up because that's what it feels like. And then Miles started to add some things like, well, how is this or how's that going and stuff. And I started to laugh because that's what he would do when I would travel. He'd ask me about other things to get me off of it. Because, you know, like sometimes whatever we're on, we're taking somebody into it. And that's not necessarily always right relation. You know, because sometimes that's like, you know, dominance, and that's, you know, just not being kind, you know, because no one needs to be carrying you, right? You need to be running you. And so I agree that we have to really recognize what we're attached to, but communicate about expectations, because we're allowed to create any kind of relationship we want. If we want the kind of relationship where, like, you know, you bring my water every day, or we go for like whatever kind of water whatever kind of day you want, you can make it, but keep to it. That's what I think we're getting called to. Pick something that you think is going to grow your grace and be accountable to it. And don't let anyone else be an excuse as to why you're not doing it.
Okay, consistency. I think that's key too, is, you know, you can't just, okay, I'm going to do this, you know, and your actions are going to, you know, back that up. I can talk all day long, right? But I've got to stay consistent in my word, in my work. And I think that's true to relationships for anything, is staying, and I've had to learn, staying consistent with myself. I tend to always be worried about everybody and anything else that I lose. Hence that losing. That's what I was talking about last night. Kind of like lose yourself in relationships. That's why I feel like when they end, it's like I come out like, rah, you know, I'm taking back my power. But I lost it. I gave it away. Like I never even probably had it. Like I dissolve into that Pisces rising. I dissolve into it, right? So I have to, first and foremost, for me, and I think anybody, I don't care what card you are, is stay consistent with you, the work in you, the doing the work for you, and not being, I think a lot of times relationships, and it's not that it's a distraction, but if we go, oh, you know, and now you're just like, every bit of your focus is on that. Where do you sit in that now? You know, to me, I feel like now someone can manipulate and control you because you've given them all of your attention, and you don't, you know, give that attention, that consistency with yourself. So I think that's key.
And then that sabotage energy, right? Because if you can't trust yourself to do what you say you're going to do, then the saboteur is just waiting for you to even make believe you think you're going to do it. You think I think you're going to do it, ha ha ha, you know, because you're not keeping promises to yourself. Right. And those are the real promises, that when you want to be someone who can trust themselves, do what you say you're going to do. Right. And know that you're doing that for you. And then it is not about anyone else, because otherwise, I know I've done it when my life was more living la viva loca. I wanted my cat to be my anchor. I wanted him to be the thing that gave me structure, because I was like in it, you know, and I needed the grounding. Do you know what I mean? So, but that wasn't their responsibility to create that structure. And if they did, my first husband, he was willing to kind of take the command of everything. But I was like, your rules are ridiculous. He was a 7 of diamonds. He was like so scared. And I was like, I ain't scared. Why are you so scared? Do you know what I mean? So he had a different way of approaching it. But it was important for me to mature enough to say, I got to be accountable to me, because that's what's going to make it so I can stay true. As soon as I'm doubting me, you know, there's a war zone inside my heart. So yeah, I totally hear you. It's a big part of self-mastery, is to recognize, just say little things, but do what you say you're going to do. Know you can trust yourself, and then no one else is going to be able to take the command of your house.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, what supports the non-clubs. That's a funny post that I made. Well, it was about accountability. Like, no one wants to take accountability within relationships, you know, for their expectations or whatever it may be, you know. So yeah, I think that is a huge part of like that Nine of Clubs is the Six of Diamonds. It's finding balance within the accountability, holding yourself accountable, holding other people accountable, and then, like you said, not getting disappointed if they don't either, creating clear boundaries and communicating clearly as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's what's hard, is to do it clearly sometimes, because emotions get into what we're feeling and we're a little bit vulnerable. Like, I've been accountable to the fact that when I'm trying to say something that's actually vulnerable, I have a tendency to kind of like go at it, and like I touch little sharp parts on the way down, like just to kind of protect myself, almost like little pork. And then I get to it. And a lot of times in my dynamics with Miles, because he's very sensitive to my tone and my nature, as I'm just talking about the things that have led me to this awareness or this vulnerability, he gets triggered by something I say. And then we're like down the pipe with like his feelings being hurt. And I'm like, because I really want to bring up what I'm feeling deep inside. But that's where learning to be vulnerable in a more regular way, because why does it have to be like a prickly field to go to my vulnerability? Do you know what I mean? Like, it can just be my true vulnerability. Do you know what I mean? And not in an over gushing vulnerability, in like I need vulnerability.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's different. Like, I can gush, you know me, I'm a gusher. But to really ask for what I need, then it's like, it feels squirrely. Like, even when someone tries to help me with something I need, I tend to be like, oh, no, I'll do it. Mm-hmm. It's silly.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a lot of that king energy too. It's overpowering sometimes, wanting to take control, or, and it is, there's a part of, I think, with the kings, that allowing others to help is a lot of times a problem. There may have been a lot of responsibility, and I think that there's a vulnerability with allowing others in, because there is such a master responsibility energy with the kings, that it's like, okay, if I give you these reins, don't crash this ship. Right. And, but that's the thing. It's like, they're not going to do it like you. They're not you. So I think there's that too, is understanding that their vulnerability is probably not your vulnerability. You know what I mean? So there's that,
They have strengths that I don't have, and they have
right.
social kind of game that I don't have because
right.
of kingness, right? Like the 5 of Clubs and the 8 of Diamonds, who are being passed down the nature part of growing with the seasons in Jersey. The young lady, she's a 5 of Clubs. Like I said, she said to me the other night at the farm, she says, you know what I'm realizing is this is going to take a lot of shoes to fill all the places that you started things in this county. And I was just like, oh yeah, this was definitely an army. Don't ever think this is your show alone, honey. Like, we're definitely in this with a bigger picture. This is not just like everybody has to know Madeline. This is a vision that I imagine there's other people living with me that I haven't even met. Mm. Do you know what I mean? So I trust it like that. But it is true, because my way of being behind the scenes, influential, making relationships, taking time over the years, going back, like there's a lot of things that are coming together that come from where my reputation, but each person who will live their assignment, like yourselves, as far as I'm concerned, and bring these cards into families and stuff like I dream, they have their own like part of the forest, if you will, or they're part of the thing, but they're coming from the energy of the shared vision, which is to encourage the heart and work together in some type of co-creation that brings a harmony, so that's the only thing that I say yes to. And after that, I'm like, just show me how we're going to do that part and how I can learn too to play my part well in it, because I know that when we work together more, we're stronger, no matter what our egos and our brattiness or our trauma stories want to tell us.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's just, like I say, I'm like, just, it's, you got to take the person out of it sometimes. And I've had, that's for me, like to be, because I, being the Jack of Hearts, I get attached to people. I get attached to the emotion. I get attached to the feeling, and it's usually mine. It's always mine. And I've had to separate the person and the attachment I have to the person and just understanding the energy. That's why these cards for me have been so healing, and just being able to really like separate the personal. It's not personal. It's they're not me. I'm not them. They're not going to do it the way I do it. And that's okay. And I think that's had to be a thing, to be like, it's okay. Like, it's not a big deal. And I used to make it a big deal. So I think, being able to take the person itself out of that, and just understanding that was there's a, like I said, it's a lot of forgiveness and understanding like that's just how they operate. That's just, and it's not giving them excuses. It's just having an understanding of that's where they're coming from, you know. And like you said, everybody has you know, good qualities that they can bring that you can, you know, when we come together. And I really do think when we have an understanding of who everybody is, we know, we then know how to play on your strengths. Okay, you're weak here or not as strong here, right? But Madeline has these strengths. And if we take both of ours together, now how dope is that, right? You know, and I think that's the key. And, but it also is that you have to allow that person to operate in that strength too, and not try to control their strength, or you know what I mean? Like, and I think having, when we were talking about those twos in Pluto.
Yeah. And also I see that so it's like the King of Diamonds, King of Hearts, because I see that coming totally also from like the King of Hearts as well, perspective, but having to understand and let go and understand those nines in its totality of what it is, because there's a certain amount of attachment and detachment, but this understanding that everything kind of works for the greater good. Because, that's your quote, right, Mel? Well, I don't know who quoted it. Did you go silent on us today?
No, sorry. I said it's happening for us is what I always say. It's happening.
Oh, okay. You went mute. I was like, it's happening again.
Oh, no. It's happening. But yeah, I mean, I've heard that, and it's been interesting for the past 2 days, ever since we had the room on Tuesday. Several of you have brought up this energy of the nines. And you know how sometimes when you hear something that you like hear it? So like there's been this way that you guys have brought in this nine conversation, like, and it can be this. I'm just like, all right, what is it? What is it? You know, like there's like a part of me like, where am I holding? You know, what am I not letting go of? Because when it comes to working with people, I've learned that it takes a certain amount of time to work with the people to get to really understand what's going on, like what I'm talking about. Like if I just say, oh, okay, cool person. Yeah, sure. Go ahead. You go do that. I used to do that. And they didn't do what we were talking about. Do you know what I mean? And like, I take this stuff seriously, and I can't help but take it seriously. And you all know me well enough to know now the way I am. Do you know what I mean? Like, so that's a tough spot for me because I'm all empowering and mommy and I love you and it's okay. And then I'm like, you fucking did what? Because it's that serious to me when it comes to the children and what grows next. So that's an ego thing for me. I've been really wondering about my ego. I've been really wondering what I'm puffing up that's full of crap. Because I sense I must be, because, you know, I'm in King. I'm like, you know, I'm in Pluto. It's happening to me too, you know? So I don't know if I'm like really a he, she maybe or something. Maybe I'm really a man and I'm not nowhere else out.
What's funny, I was reading something last night. It may have been on the King of Hearts, and it was talking about the women or the King of Diamonds. But they do come out as more masculine, you know, so they have to really watch, because it's like the King of Hearts isn't supposed to be this flamboyant. I wouldn't say flamboyant. It isn't supposed to be this bravado. I'm the king. Follow me. Follow my orders. It's like they naturally flow into it, you know, without the expectations of anyone needing them. But then there are the ones who don't get the things or the recognition or maybe the love and the reflections as they want. And I think it comes off from the stories of the people, you know, outside of just the book, right? Because sometimes these people do have this essence of not follow my lead, but I'm here. Like, why aren't you really following me or paying attention? And I think it comes from this greater love of wanting to people to connect and operate, and not seeing the greater good of like this, like you said, like this utopia that we can live in. You know, it's like I've created this utopia. Why don't you cooperating. So, so that was like the book, what the book was saying. But yeah, the women have a tougher time playing the king cards. And they can be a little bit more aggressive in nature sometimes when carrying it, or passionate. Let's not say aggressive.
I
Passionate.
like that. Very nice reframe. Very nice. I won't need my depression medication today. Thanks.
Passionate.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting thing because to me, and now that I'm getting more into the human design and learning with that too, because the other woman's coming in, we just keep talking about, so there must be a way that the energies really do work together for something, because we're all designed in these unique ways. And so not to say that we deploy what everybody's job is, but there's probably some kind of environment or an experiential something that at least helps people access, okay, so who am I and what's up with me? And these are just stories. Like everything that's happening in these toric fields in this life we're living has nothing really to do with me. It's just how I respond to it. All that's really me is this straight center shot from the ground and up, and there's a soul that wants to grow to where I flower. And I got to use that for my power. I have to use my essence to be who I'm here to be and express my gifts for the community, not just for my bank book. Right? So like, that's as simple as it is to me. But this energy of what's going on here is very distracting. And when you're here and you take a loop or you go over there and then you're in crazy town and you think the whole world's over there, it's not over there. It's always right here. Like the whole time. And this clarity is a clarity that only you have. There's only a frequency for Rashawn and Gina. Like I cannot gain the clarity and the insight that you can from that centering and that alignment. But in that alignment, you know who you are, you know your purpose, your assignment, but you got to listen to the innate intelligence that's growing through us. And if we're not listening and we're trying to, oh, he's not going to do that again, or that, no, I got to make that. I know I'm getting paid this. Where are we? You know what I mean? That's to me, like that's as simple as it got. Once I figured the cross out like that, and I was like, oh, so this cross thing, this is the world and this is us. Oh, and then the center is how we bloom. Oh, okay, I can do that.
So what's the cross thing? You said the cross.
Well, like, growing up Catholic, that cross and the person hanging on it and the whole like story of sacrifice and stuff was a big theme, and then when I started to go into understanding more about the directions and the medicine wheel and stuff, it really made sense to me that the cross was more about the centering, right? So that when I think about a cross, it's not necessarily one long and the one shorter like they do for the Jesus hanging. It's like a circle with like a cross. And like that center of me, that connection from earth to sky or vice versa, earth to sky is my why. Like that connection is why I'm here. And these experiences that I live on the vertical plane, they're the things I need to do to try not to go insane. Like I have to continue to live my life in this clarity while growing through the lack and disparity of the energy that lives in this time. So when I understood the cross that way and realized that I needed to align my masculine and feminine, I needed to use my energy from the earth and up, then this stuff just became stuff that happened. The tricky part for me is if I like somebody, if I think they're funny and I go in with them for a ride, I can lose this. I can go over there. So being a therapist for such a long time, I don't want to lose this for that shit. So I've had to really learn not to like, they go there, I make the jokes, I'm in it too, I get it, but I'm not leaving my spot. Because then I'm lost in the sauce with them. I'm like, what did he do? Oh, you should do this. Like, oh, come on, that's gross. And don't say I didn't do it. I did it. And I'm sorry, because it wasn't the nice thing to do. But at the time, I thought I was in some kind of a fight. I'm not in a fight.
No, it sounds like the Jack Horse, like, don't sacrifice yourself. Be fixed in your mission. But definitely understanding the mission overall. But yeah, I think that's the even with the King of Clubs, kind of bringing it full circle as far as like expectations and relationships and sitting in the twos, and I think that can be saviors in the Queen of Hearts and all of the hearts. I think there's a certain amount of attachments and having attachments to emotions and people, and we have to. And I think the Jack Hearts is a good lesson, Gina, as far as not being fixed within who you are and not overly sacrificing yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
And it's based on concepts of your ego. That's the whole thing. When you get fixed sometimes, if you're fixed on something that you know can rock the house and grow the soul, by all means, fix yourself. But if you're fixed on some ideology of wounding or hurt or victimhood or sacrifice or people coming for you, or like if you get fixed on something like that, a distortion, that's still a fix. You know, having the 8 of clubs sun, we've talked a lot about that. I'm like, you know, Johnny, I get how you are, but like, you got to make sure your mind can change a little bit, because when you get like that, you make no room for anybody to bloom, honey.
Mm-hmm.
You tighten up the whole ship.
Mm-hmm.
I said, so without the room to bloom, we're all going to be sitting there waiting for John to come. I'm not waiting for John to come, honey. I'm like, that's not going to happen. That's not why I'm here. You know? So, no offense. So,
I mean, it's, you know, I like the whole, it makes sense, because even, you know, I remember someone has always told me, you got to, you know, stand and the light coming in, and this is for you. It's not for everybody else, right? This is yours. And you're, you know, speaking of me, that, you know, being that energy that's always like here, but then this is why I feel like the Jack of Hearts can be such the lower side of it.
They get depleted.
Very depleted. You get very stuck, and now there's a lot of pain and disappointment because you've given this, right, to everybody else but yourself. And then when you really do need it, and they're like, there's that like, you know, but it's like,
but that's not shared expectations, not communicate expectations. That means you were investing, kind of expecting. Do you know what I mean? So that complaining energy becomes an entity.
What's that victim? It's there's that victim. Yeah. You did this to me, and you know.
I walked up to somebody yesterday at the farm, and he's in a good way. You know, he's got a camper there, this and that. And I hadn't talked to him in a long time. This was like my first back to the farm yesterday. And the first thing he did when I walked up to him was, well, you know, it's been 2 years. He just started to complain. And I just stopped. Right? I said, do you recognize that before we even really greeted each other, you started to complain? Is there something you want from me with that complaining? And he was like, oh, now I remember talking. And I said, what are you doing? Like, you start to complain. Like, you're just like coming at me with your complaints. Like, why?
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing? And he's like, well, it was like that. I said, but there's other things to talk about. Every time I talk to you, you're complaining about something. How do you receive the light of God if you're complaining all the time?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, he's a person who's a very spiritual guy, does all these spiritual programs, but every time I talk to him, he's complaining. And I'm like, what are you
doing? I think that's another part of it as well. Because there's like this balance too. It's like so hard, you know, to have boundaries, but then also stay in your square, not be over sacrificial. I think it's the swing that we all kind of take, right? That's why it's like the jacket challenges itself. It's like, you know, because we do have stories, we do have emotional things that we go through. We have these emotional attachments, and then there's almost like this like you were saying, like you can be in this groove with someone, and then there are expectations, but then also you got to understand like things happen and it all works for the better good. So it's like, how do you have the balance? You know, where's the expectations, and then where's the boundaries? You know, but then where's the understanding that things happen? You know, so it's like,
well, it's the bonding. You do a bonding with those emotions. Like certain emotions are baity. Do you know what I mean? Like that's how we're manipulative emotionally. We're kind of baity. Like those are baity things. Like, oh, what do you mean? Was it hard? I think like I don't want to say that. Why do I got to say that? I'm going to script you to be like your mom. I don't want to be your mom. I wanted to ask you about this music we're going to play on Earth Day. I don't want to do that. But that's what makes me firm and direct and mean. But I'm not being firm, direct, and mean. I'm being boundaried because I do not need to edify this story that I've already overheard you say 4 or 5 times, and you probably said 7,000 times in your own fucking life. You know what I mean? Like, what does that serve? So debating emotionally, I'm really conscious of how I can be manipulatively emotional and how I feel manipulated emotionally. Because if you think about it, that's what happened to all of us with music, with media, with who you're supposed to be as a parent. We've all been emotionally manipulated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think it's
We're watching people to go through their emotions. Go ahead, G.
no. I like it really is like the story we tell ourselves, you know, over and over and over again. I remember like just with my daughter, you know, when she was younger, oh, you know, she had this test to take. I'm going to fail the test. And I'm like, you know, if you keep saying that, that's going to be the reality. And so it's just noticing the words that she was saying and trying to make her understand like that, like the voice inside your head is really kind of what's now coming out, right?
Like, does she need help
there.
saying that because she needs help with the test? Like, because like that's the thing. Instead of saying what we really need, we bait with comments like that. So the other person's like, well, let me figure out what they need. But if you get to like, I need like a half an hour of quiet to sit and study this, or I need this. Can you help create this? Can you do this so I can do this? Now you can actually prepare yourself for the test. But if you're just like, it's not going to work, it's not going to work. And the people are running in, maybe I could do this. Maybe I could do this. What?
Mm-hmm. And it's just like, even like, you know, when she goes ready to play a game, well, you know, we're going to lose. It's like, why? Like, I mean, you know, well, they're better. Well, okay. I mean, and I'm like, that's the, like, I try to get her to really like see how powerful those words are, that conversation is, and what we tell ourselves. And a lot of it I realize is like, you know, it stems from the environment that she comes from. And I know for me, it's like, I've had to do a lot of conversating with myself. It starts with me and where that voice comes from, and realizing that it wasn't even my own, right? That it was
exactly
where I came, how was implanted in me. And I really think a lot of this work that we do and that brings us to these spaces is to really reprogram that voice that we may have been given that wasn't ours, and then really actually making our own without the influence that may not have been, you know, for our highest good. And that's okay, because I'm actually, everything that I've experienced is why I'm where I am. So for me, I needed all of that. So I have a lot of peace.
No, it's perfect. It's perfect.
I needed it, even though it really didn't have to be that intense, but I get it.
You're passionate.
Ass kick it to just see it sometimes, and rip the shit right off and be like, whoa, how did I get here? Because I can live in La La Land, and I like it there, but I realized that that's not conducive to me. I needed to really create my own voice, create my own thoughts, create my own beliefs that were not, you know, muddled in a lot of the pain and whatever. So, and that to me is a rebirth. That to me is an opportunity to really, you know, now have your voice, now have your beliefs that are your own. And you have, and really it is a lot of reparenting, going back to that inner child and loving that. And even if you didn't have what you may have thought should have been, you know, a nurturing environment, you have to do that for yourself too. You know, I think that
I believe music is the answer.
No, music is very, you hear, I have to have, it's always on.
Music's the new cotton, because like when we can tune ourselves into a frequency, like I know, like if I go to a festival or some expansive experience and it's in a hard space, I'm thinking differently, I'm speaking differently, I'm moving differently, because I'm tuned into myself in a way that I'm not guarded, I'm relaxed, I'm open. Like I call it in the sisterhood satsangs, tuning true. Like you got to learn that true frequency of yourself so that you can access it and know your center, because it's easy to get distracted. But what you put in your body and the music that you listen to, how you sing, like think about how we can move energy just through singing. Just saying things. Like for some reason, I haven't been singing lately since the moon dance, and I really need to again, because there's some things here, and I could talk about them all fucking day. But if I sing, they will get attention, because energy will go there and it'll move some of it. Do you know what I mean? So I think we're instruments. I just straight up think we're instruments that are tuning true.
And you do have to do things, because I do believe the body keeps the score. That's a great, your emotional. So you have to, like for me, I know I have to be physical. If I'm not physical, that gets stagnant, and I can be explosive. So I have to physically move my energy. I can have a lot of energy. And then that's why I feel like people are like, oh, you're intense. And it's like, if I'm really not intense, if there's a buildup, I can feel, very intense. So I have to move my energy. And another thing I've realized too, and it just happened this year, is I was having some trouble sleeping at the beginning of the year. And I'm like, I haven't struggled with sleep in a while. I'm like, what is it? What am I missing? I got my magnesium, and I'm like, oh my God, you haven't been in the sun. I'm a Leo. I have a lot of Leo in me. And I have so the sun is not something I run from. I'm from the beach. I grew up on the water. Like, I need the ocean. I need the water. I need the sun. And so I bought myself a chair. I sit right in my driveway. I don't care. Because for me, even if it's 15 minutes, it doesn't have to be all day. Now I can be in the sun all day. I love it. But just getting my cell, it's like, it rejuvenates me. It almost like refreshes me. I need the sun. The sun is very important to me. So I think knowing that for you, another thing, like I was talking to somebody yesterday about things that I do that help me, because I know me, I need the water. If I can't get to the water, I will create the ocean in my bathtub, like salts and, all different types of things. And that's been something I've been doing now for almost a year, doing my bath, so soaking in the salt. Like, there was certain things, like I said, even if I'm sitting in my yard with my feet in the ground, like I don't have a lot of earth in me. But so I need to connect to the earth. Like, that's a really important thing for me too, is to feel my feet on the ground or my feet in the sand. To kind of, I almost feel like it's a way to release a lot of the energy that you build up, especially if you deal with people and you're, stuff like that. You kind of have to dump a lot of that stuff too. So, understanding your elements and what you need, and getting it, like I said, getting in the sun is extremely important for me. It was affecting my sleep. And as soon as I went out there, I slept like no problem. So I need the sun. So yeah, understanding your energy, like music. I have to have music on and you probably have heard it. Like I have to have music on, even when I'm doing readings. You can probably hear the music in the background.
It's like
it kind of draws me back.
I'm sorry, Richard, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, it just kind of draws me back even to the energy of the dating King of Clubs and Queen of Hearts. Is the understanding, but also understanding who you are and what you need, but in order to be in service to anyone else. But go ahead.
Oh no, I was just saying with her, I was just saying, yeah, that it's like that. I was just backing it up with some comment that probably slipped out of my brain. So it was nothing of potent to say, just like, yep, it starts with you. It is you. But that earth connection, that's an interesting thing, Gina. I think that the weighted blanket is a thing for that, the baths and stuff like that, because I have all the elements pretty balanced in my deal, but me too. I need sun time. I need outside time. Like, I definitely get moody if I don't exercise and do some dancing or something. I'm a little bit more reactive. So that's, again, it's a moving, flowing energy, right? It's not stagnant, So like, there's things that get stuck because when we get hurt over and over, we kind of like, when you have a trauma, it goes, right? And then another trauma, and then another one. And then the part that's still trickling and trying to go is like, all right, let's try to get it up there. Let's keep going, right? And we go into like a decline. We don't even know that we can grow to our full potential anymore because so much of our life force is being held. So that self-inquiry and saying, where is that part of me that needs my attention? And like, what can happen now? Like, because of the reflections of the fish bowls, Miles and I had some really amazing insights, and it happened organically. But what happened was there was a space and time where I got really disappointed and hurt by his choices, and we could never really get over it. Like, we knew that it didn't matter anymore, but it would always be there. And one day, surprising me, he just responded to me and went there and said that he understood what it felt like, and that he reflected my feelings at that time without making it about him, without trying to like make himself feel better, make me be dramatic, and just was like, oh wow, that must have been like, was it like this? Like, he met me there. And as soon as we met there, I was like, we should repair this, because we don't want to leave this way. That's part of what makes us stay holding, is because we didn't want to hurt each other, and we hurt each other.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, so like repair those spots. And that happens from ourselves to ourselves, right? Because sometimes you just stay somewhere for so long because you don't know how not to be there.
Right.
Because your energy's held there.
And that's, you know, you look at like somatic healing and stuff like that. What, you know, you go to the animal kingdom. If an animal gets attacked, what is the first? They shake. They shake it off. Mm-hmm. And it's because they can't hold that. It's if they were attacked. You know, and the first thing a dog does after anything, they shake. It's a shake. So they're shaking it out. And you can actually YouTube and Google different like shaking exercises to help release.
That's so fun. I might do that.
There's some, it's in it. You know, a lot of, they say, you know, to have sometimes, because if you have a lot of pent up, you know, trauma, or you've been attacked, it freezes in you. Right. And if we don't release that, if we don't address it, if we don't let it go, it will constantly show up. It will.
It'll be in all your relationships, and you'll be your story, and you won't be your frequency living the glory. Yeah.
I can't remember the exact like term for it, but there is something where you literally lie on the ground, like you put your legs up and then you shake, like you vigorously shake, and it helps to release a lot of the pent up stuff.
I'm gonna be shaking.
You lay on the ground and you shake it out. They do it for a lot of military people with PTSD. It helps with that, to be able to kind of like shake out a lot of the energy that you've, you know, been storing in that trauma. Tapping is another thing too. EFT tapping is really good. And you say the things, you know, so you're releasing, because your cells, they hold the memory, they hold these things, right? So until you can, you know, it's one thing to do all the reading and the spirit, but if it's stuck in here, it will, you know, it'll come back. So there's many different modalities that help with releasing that stuff, because the body does keep the score, you know. So totally. I think that's a great way to kind of end because I know we got to go. And a Queen of Hearts week, you know, any of those emotions maybe that are centered around mother or lack thereof, or whatever the case may be. You know, doing things, especially today at King of Clubs Day, it's Uranus, shake that shit out. You know,
I got a plan. I just got a cancellation at noon. I know I'm shaking it at noon. If anybody feels,
and it has the 8 of spades too.
I'm in my 8 of spades year.
Yeah, I say it has the 8 of spades. That's like the physical, the body,
right?
You know?
Yes. Your will, yes, you know, and that's true, you know, and doing the internal willing it out, and, you know, physically activity. Like, that's why people are always like, you know, when I used to train in martial arts, listen, that was orgasmic for me, because I could go to a pad and to a person and just go ham. And it's just, you get it out. I like to fight. I like to hit things, and I realize it's therapeutic for me, because for me it's taking the energy and punching it out, hitting it out. And even now with the classes that I take, I don't train in that anymore, but there's one of the classes I take, we stomp on a butt, and it's like stomp it out. And as silly as it feels, it's like, but no, like you really can get it out. And then I walk out of that class like,
that's a good incentive. I like that, mirror. Thank you, Gina. When I was in the rehab with the kids, we did a Billy Blanks. I was called Maddie Blanks, and we used to do that kickboxing and this and that. And yeah, I remember how strong I felt during those days. And
I would destroy it. I love it. I used to get in trouble in class all the time. You know, you're not really fighting. I'm like, but why do you gotta hit? So, I mean, listen, I pay to be here. If you can't take it, get out. Give me somebody else that can. Like, the women would hate training with me, because that's why I always pick the man. I was like, you're my partner. You could at least hold the punch, hold the pad, but not hurt my arm. because I be going ham. Like, I love it. It was so good for me. I know. And it's like knowing my placements. Once I started like diving in, I was like, huh, that makes sense. That's why I do that. You know?
But hey, let's end it.
Yeah, let's go.
If y'all have any questions, just make sure you contact Gina on Instagram, Guided by the Cards, and Madeline, Growing with the Seasons. Is it Growing with the Seasons on Instagram or?
It's GWTS Family,
GWTS.
1111. GWTS, like Growing with the Seasons Family, 1111. Yeah.
I haven't been changing the YouTubes lately, so I'll make sure I go back and edit the ones in the comments and the
Yeah, I want to put them over to me. But
description.
yeah, thank you guys. And please, anyone who wants readings or wants to learn more, you can go to the website or check out Rashad and Cards or Gina Guided by the Cards, because we're definitely looking to get into your lives and help you continue to understand yourself in a way that you thrive. So thanks for listening and asking good questions and showing up.
Yep, and you'll see you guys Tuesday on Clubhouse. We do a room there too, so that'll be fun. Next week is the final week of this King of Hearts month, and it'll be a King of Hearts week. So all the emotions that we've, rode this whole month, here comes the mastery of it all. What have you learned? Are you more emotionally intelligent? Are you in touch with your emotions? Because the next month is a Queen of Hearts month, and then the following month is a Jack of Hearts month. So we're gonna be here for a little bit.
Woo-hoo! Happy to be here with you both. Thank you for everything you bring.
Peace, everybody. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.